Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Sachin Karnik here from Angel Wing LLC. We are on year number 2, week number 4 of the online personal transformation program. So I want to welcome you all who are joining us live, as well as all those who are doing this program independently on your own. In the current series, we're looking at the major concept of energy conservation in relation to sustained balance. So please remember that the theme of year number 2 is sustained balance. What is it that we're trying to balance? To always go back to this diagram. We want to maintain balance in all 12 dimensions of our life, which we all have in some way or another, and to sustain it, to reach that stage by the end of this year, that balance is just sustained. So hopefully we'll reach that at a good level at some point during this year if we haven't reached it already. Right. So having said that, we are examining the third stage in this series of core energy utilization. We've looked at energy activation, energy equalization, and energy conservation is what we are looking at now in detail. So along those lines, as you know, that there is an incredible amount of energy that actually flows through our system. There's absolutely no question about that. We have a phenomenal amount of energy that is flowing. There is, of course, the neurological phenomena, the neuroscience behind energy management. If we look at it this way, that our brain is a biochemical energy machine. So from that point of view, the brain energy flow needs to be budgeted also, meaning what? That the brain uses a significant portion of the body's energy supply, making energy regulation a critical function. This is point number 1 on the right-hand side. You can see what I'm reading from there. So understanding how neural circuits budget energy helps explain why mental fatigue and effort correlate with physical sensations of tiredness. And this is one of the key points here that I want to make sure that's very clear as we are trying to understand energy conservation. That first of all, let's go sequentially step by step. We have brain. The brain is a biochemical machine. It's a neurochemical, biochemical mechanism. It uses a significant portion of the total supply of energy within the body, anywhere from 20% or more, depending on how it's being used, making energy regulation a critical function. Now, we know that energy has to be regulated. But what does regulation mean? To regulate means to keep it within a range. It doesn't matter what biological function we're talking about, it has to stay within a range. Temperature, blood pressure, digestion, it doesn't matter. Every physiological function has to stay within a range. If it goes outside that range, there's going to be dysfunction. If it stays within that range, then that is good quality function. And to maintain that good quality function, that is called regulation. There is the regulatory mechanisms at play. Right? So to understand energy conservation in this context means that when energy becomes available, it is the availability heuristic. When energy becomes available, not all of it is utilized in a way that prevents its regrowth, revitalization, which we will talk about in more detail later on. So energy that is actively available, certain portion of that is utilized to do the activity we have predetermined to do, and to leave the remainder amount of that energy actively available but not utilized. And hence we are conserving that portion. We talked about this last 2 times. I know it's a difficult concept to understand. Generally, we think of energy conservation like it's just storage. Well, hold on. Energy is already stored in the body. There's fat molecules, there's carbohydrates, there's various ways that it's all stored. It has to be open. So it becomes open through exercise, through contemplation, through activity, mental, physical, verbal, all kinds of activity. It becomes available. But just because it's available doesn't mean that it's 100% utilized. See the distinction. It's available. Uh, so for example, let's take a simple example. You're watching some news show like ABC News or CNN. You turn it on. So as soon as you turn that on, there's a certain amount of energy in the brain, in the mind, physically, in many ways. It becomes available to do that activity. All right. So we want to watch the news for a half an hour. We do it all the time. What's the big deal? But you'll notice what happens. Certain portion of that activated energy, which doesn't need to be used excessively in that activity, is also used. For example, we watch. Let's say Sachin is watching some story in the news, some situation going on, and then I'm getting involved. I'm getting stuck inside there. There's just so much funneling, concentration that is going on. Rather than utilizing just the right amount to gain that experience, but not to use anything more than that. And that's the real secret here of energy conservation. And this is a much more advanced subject. So as we move into year number 2, these topics are going to get more and more intricate, but they're beautiful and they are really quite extraordinary once we understand the concepts and then really try to apply them. That just because energy is available, just because Sachin is sitting for a half an hour in front of the TV or on the YouTube or whatever, it doesn't mean that all of my activated energy just needs to be funneled into that. No, only the right amount. Only the amount that is useful, beneficial at that time to gain the experience. Like I understand what's going on there. I see the story, I see it. But I don't dump more power, more energy, more time into that. I don't dump my emotional energy into that activity. See, this is where energy conservation principle really is applied. This is what we do. Once we get involved in something, it's good to be involved if it's helpful for us. We have to decide that. But then we get over-involved. And we also notice it. So I got too involved in this. I got too much involved in watching this thing. I got too much involved in this conversation. I got too much involved in talking nonsense with somebody. I got whatever. There is the right amount of involvement, and then there's a demarcation into over-involvement, over-activity. That's the problem. That's where energy doesn't get conserved. It gets pulled out further, and many times we even pull out more stored energy, and then we get tired. We get very, very tired because of that. We get exhausted. So many problems happen. And our brain, which is using a large portion of this energy, we get mental fatigue from that. Physical sensations of tiredness come about. So mental fatigue is a direct indicator that we have pulled out too much energy. Too much. We haven't learned how to balance it properly. It could be in any activity. It could be something on the computer. It could be in a conversation. It could be some project we're working on. I mean, who knows? It could be absolutely anything. We do not want to get to the point of mental fatigue. It could be playing an instrument that I enjoy playing, the piano or the keyboard or something. And I just do it to such an extent. I just get so sick of it. I get tired of it. You see? So that's called oversaturation. So the oversaturation leads to mental fatigue. It also creates a wave of dislike for the activity. Isn't it so? For example, take food. Okay, take a simple example. I go to my, let's just say I go to a Mexican restaurant, Amigos, Trios, or something like that. I don't know, who knows, whatever they're called, right? All these Mexican places, El Tapiaco, or whatever it is. I don't know how to pronounce them exactly. In Price's Corners, El Maya is there. It's another interesting one, right? So many restaurants are there. So you go to your favorite restaurant, say, I really want to eat that, 3 enchiladas with red sauce and beans and this and all that, whatever it is. All right. So I have it in front of me. So I'm enjoying it. I start eating it. And I because I'm enjoying it so much, I overeat it. And then eventually, because I've done too much, overstimulated, I have damaged desire. My desire for the object is damaged. I don't know if you've ever heard that expression or not. It's something over the last 10 years in my own contemplations have really tried to understand this phenomena. Try to see what it is. That desire is not to be damaged. Desire is to be kept alive to some extent without exhausting it completely. And because if we exhaust it completely, we create a wave of dislike. And that causes energy to be damaged, energy flow to be damaged. It throws off our system completely. It throws it off. Then I don't want to go to that restaurant again. So the whole idea is to keep the spark alive without damaging the desire to go back to it, yet at the same time being satisfied, but not satisfied to the point where desire is damaged. And this is the secret of energy conservation. At the very root level, this is one of the very difficult points to understand. Even to understand it is difficult. Look, this happens in so many situations. For example, let's say we have some guests who come to our house. Let's use some very simple examples to understand this. Some guests come and they are going to stay for, let's say, 3 days. So the very first day they come and, you are excited and this and that. All that fun stuff is going on, lots of conversations. Day 1 goes by with a lot of excitement and a lot of conversation. Day 2, now the conversation is a little bit less. By the time the day 3 comes, it's like, well, okay, it'll be good once they go. And then if they say, no, we are going to stay another 2 more days. Oh, so you might superficially say, oh, that's so nice, that's so wonderful. But internally you're saying, oh my God, I have to deal with this another 2. Something that was so enjoyable and exciting and wonderful and fantastic on day 1 now has become like, when are they going to go from here? I mean, it's you see, this is another example of oversaturation. This happens in relationships, in intimate relationships. Of course, husband, wife. I mean, maybe they go through the dating phase and and then the courtship and all that stuff. All that stuff goes on, right? And then they're engaged and they have this massive wedding and this and that. And then as time goes on, the honeymoon period all settles down. Some of you who may have gone through that, you might know what I'm talking about. I have not gone through it, thankfully, but some others have, certainly. And that's another example, right? So too much familiarity, too much togetherness. This is too much. You just go away for a couple of days, and so then we can keep that the relationship has some flavor behind it. You're together all the time. Then that leads to extramarital affairs and other things, which we don't want to talk about, obviously. All kinds of things happen because of oversaturation. You see the problems here. In all 12 dimensions, difficulties happen when you oversaturate. Same thing happens with a vacation. I remember in the year 2002, I had gone to Hawaii for 2 weeks. It was a 2-week grand Hawaiian vacation. And it was fun, and we had gone to the different islands and all that. But what's interesting, the Polynesian people living there, they consider New York City as heaven. They said that we're living here, this is hell for us. This is like terrible, terrible place. We can't wait to get out of here. So a place that is considered so heavenly by so many tourists, they're considering the New York City and Philadelphia as heaven, and we consider that these are some terrible places. Let's get away from here and see, it's all relative. It's oversaturation. Every experience in the material world is good within a certain range, and if it's kept within that range, then energies are naturally going to remain very well stabilized, well balanced, and conserved. Think of that example with the guests. They're here for 3 days. By the time they leave peacefully and happily after 3 days, it's really well and good. Okay, see you 6 months from now and all that. But then if somebody stays too long, oh my God, then you say, why are these people here? And then you start talking about things that you didn't want to talk about, and I'm sure you've seen all this kind of stuff happen, right? It's too much. This is true with anything in the material world. Even religious practices, I would even say that, somebody, go to church once a week, twice a week, whatever you want. Well, what if you're just in the church? I actually met, believe it or not, a Hindu priest. You love this story. A Hindu priest years back, somewhere in Atlanta. He was, he and his wife and maybe one or two kids were staying or something, and he was there all the time. And they had to be there like 24/7, and they couldn't really leave very much. He was very devout and very, holy person, all that. But he said, this place has become a prison for me. I said, the people are on the outside are thinking you're living in the most heavenly place, and you're calling it a prison. I mean, I was shocked to hear that. You see, oversaturation. This is the problem. And this is a neuropsychological phenomena. When we oversaturate any experience, overdo any experience, we damage desire. And by damaging desire, we extinguish the energy within desire. And when we extinguish that energy, we are imbalancing the mind-brain-body connection. Very interesting. What is the glory of desire? The TEMDE, thought, emotion, memory, desire, and energy. Desire is energy. But see, our human ego is such, it wants to extinguish desire. It wants to fulfill it completely. Okay, you may fulfill it completely, but then there's that demarcation. This want to go a little bit further, and then it really causes a great deal of energetic problems. This happens like with alcohol. Let's say you have recreational drinkers, but sometimes people drink excessively, right? Why? Because they want to get to some certain experience. So they might get there, but then there's a lot of consequences. They might pass out, they might throw up, they might have hangovers, who knows what it is, right? So we know that moderation is important, but the awareness of how the brain is affected can give us all kinds of wisdom about how far to go in these material experiences. Our brain is a biochemical extraordinary mechanism. And if we are aware that this is a mechanism that is not to be harmed at all, that under no circumstances is Sachin going to take any action that is going to cause an imbalance in the brain, a damage to the brain, overstimulation of synapses, it's going to cause it to dysregulate. No. Like the brain is a mechanism that has to be kept as healthy as possible. Doesn't matter what the age. Well, that's an interesting way to think about this. When we are really paying attention that each action performed is impacting the brain directly. Every food substance I take, every drink I take, every interaction, all actions of the body and of the mind are impacting the brain. Okay, very interesting. Then that brings about the need to keep oneself in a synchronous state. That I am going to take one action at a time, one step at a time, one movement at a time. But I'm not going to allow my own revolving mind to sabotage my happiness, to sabotage my development towards self-mastery. Our own mind sabotages this development. And then I want to also bring in one more point, and that is the importance of discipline. Now, there's two kinds of discipline. There's the cultivated discipline, where energy is activated and then, of course, conserved, equalized and then conserved in a certain way. And then there is a natural discipline that is not contrived, non-contrived discipline. Yes, that is a higher discipline than the developed one. But to get to that non-contrived discipline, the developed one is necessary. Now, what is discipline? Discipline is deciding to keep our activity, mind, brain, body, senses, day-to-day activity within a predetermined boundary, within a predetermined range. And so keeping activity within a predetermined boundary, predetermined range, that builds discipline, and then consistently keeping it there. Let's say someone says, I'm going to walk 1 mile every day at 10 a.m. in the morning. All right. For how long? So make a determination. We're going to do that for 1 month. Okay, 30 days. Fine. Come day 12, day 14, 15, whatever. So I don't feel like doing it. I don't want to do it. This damages the discipline development. So to gain control over the mind, to gain purview over the mind, to prefix discipline, that boundary, and then to move in that direction, what will that do? That will bring about a very good development. It will strengthen our resolve. It will strengthen willpower. And this is why, like when people go for basic training in the Army and Navy and Marines and all that, they have to go through so much training. They have to wake up at the same time every day. They have to go through all these drills. They have to do that. Why do they do that? They do that because they want to discipline those individuals to move into a certain pattern so that they can follow through on orders, whatever. But they're highly trained, highly disciplined, right? So in our program, in the EPE, in the PTP program, we are talking about discipline also. But discipline is such that it's based on energy flow. That how can I move throughout the day performing predetermined actions that are going to really keep my energies at the highest dynamic level and keep my mood, my emotions, everything very nice. Simple things like, keeping your room clean, keeping clothes well organized, keeping everything where it should be, not throwing things around all over the place. What does it do? It builds an environment. And so energy is conserved because every object, even in our room, carries energy. The way it is placed carries energy. If things are scattered all over, our mind is also going to be scattered all over. But if we organize well and we can find everything well, cleanliness is that old saying, right? Cleanliness is next to godliness. Why is that there? Cleanliness, orderliness. This is how discipline is developed. There's always room for improvement. You'll be surprised. Even something like putting your socks in the right place. Make it better. Look at where your socks are and arrange them properly. And take deep breaths while doing that. It becomes a meditation. It sounds ridiculous. Like, what do you mean by meditation? That's a meditation? Of course. Of course. If you try it sometime, maybe this weekend, say that this weekend I want to organize my closet. Well, people, even thinking about that paralyzes them. I said, oh my God, I don't want to do that. I'll just throw things all right. I'll do it later. We keep delaying. It's imperative to get to that point where there are no more delays. That doesn't mean you just do everything at one time, but to not delay the right actions is going to build energetic excellence. It's going to build good quality energy. But the moment we delay something that shouldn't be delayed, it creates resistance inside. Even if it's the smallest thing that should not be delayed, it creates resistance. And from that resistance, that activity lingers inside our mind. This is to be done. And that damages the beauty of the present moment. It damages the other actions that have to be done. So because life is nothing but a series of actions to be taken. But the right actions in the right amount, taken at the right time, for the right purpose, for our benefit, for the benefit of others, etc., without delay or procrastination at all, is a state we want to get to. And once we get to that state, sustained balance is not going to be far away. Sustained balance will be there. But it doesn't, we don't do that. That's the difficulty. But people like, for example, who are living in monasteries or in different kinds of very highly structured religious organizations, they have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning or 4:30 and do their prayers and meditations. And they have to do that without any break. They do that for years. Can you imagine waking up at 4 a.m. or maybe 5 a.m. for 10 years straight without a single break? We can't even do it for 10 days. Even the thought of it for getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock, he says, no way, that can't happen. We have the snooze button and then we hit that snooze. By that time, you hit it so many times that watch is broken. The clock is broken. My goodness, Now they have all these reminders on these Alexa devices and all that. So then you turn that thing off, because we do not discipline ourselves. We don't even know how much time, energy, and everything is wasted in sleeping too much. Also, we sleep too much, we eat too much, we talk too much. Most human beings, too much, just nonsense things. And what does it do? It brings at the very end tiredness. See, there's a simple barometer at the end of the day before hitting the pillow at night. What is the feeling inside? There's the feeling, what a splendid day, what a beautiful day. That feeling is a barometer. It is a subjective feeling. But if I'm going to the bed at night, I say, oh my God, I had a terrible day. I'm so tired. I'm this, I'm that, that just means I've wasted so much energy in useless things. And I don't have the wisdom to recognize that. So that's why energy is not conserved. And without conservation, there cannot be happiness. There's going to be misuse. And that's the way it goes. So the misuse and the abuse of time and energy and effort and everything else causes all of this type of difficulty. Again, start with small things. Literally, like go through the schedule. Like today, what is it that is to be done today? There are usually major events scheduled, whatever they may be. Then start with also small activities in the home. You'd be surprised, how much power there is in keeping the kitchen spotlessly clean. Try it for 1 week. Make a determination that under no circumstances is there to be any kind of junk inside the kitchen. Get it well organized, clean it up, and guess what? Maintain it for 10 days. Try and maintain it. You'll see what happens. There's an impulse to say, I'll put some dishes here. I'll wash them tomorrow. I'll do this later. Don't do that. Just break right through that delay feeling and stay on track. And even if something simple like that is mastered, we cannot master the big things until the small activities are mastered. It's never possible. Never possible. It's never possible to get to self-mastery in its totality in 12 dimensions until we start with really small activities and consistently master them, consistently balance them, consistently decide what it ought to be. Like, for example, I'll use myself as an example. If I say that, I want to read 100 pages every single day, just hypothetically, not that I'm doing that, but if I decide that I want to read from different books 100 pages every day for the next 6 months. If the decision is there, I said, I'm making a decision, I'm putting my energies into it, whether I want to or not, whether I feel like it or not, a decision has been made. It is not going to be changed unless there is a life and death emergency. If you do it yourself without anybody else forcing one to do it, is the highest, is the best discipline. But usually if you're in a group of people and there's like a headmaster, somebody saying you have to do this now and you're going to be graded or you're going to be punished, or this, then you person does it without they have to do it because they have to. But when we impose a predetermined pattern, we talk about patterns a lot in our various angel wing programs, but patterns are important. To set up patterns is important. That builds a developed discipline. And then it can go to the next stage of a non-developed discipline. Some other time we'll talk about that in more detail. But if we don't set up patterns, we will remain scattered. Now, that doesn't mean one has to be completely rigid and non-flexible. No, that doesn't mean that. But it's a matter of realizing what is the right pattern for me. I have to see. There's a lot of principles and a lot of ideas that are of great relevance all the way around. There's no question. But what are the right patterns in my life? And that is where this whole thing about habits and routines comes into the picture. It all comes into the picture because there is neuroplasticity that goes right along with that. There's no question. It's a tremendous amount of neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity means that the brain is going to evolve. It is going to grow. Executive functions like decision making grow. Self-control naturally grows. The prefrontal cortex is much more energized, etc. Right? So habits and routines impact energy balance. Neuroplasticity is enhanced. And in doing so, neurotransmitter levels are functioning where they need to be. Right? Stress responses are reduced. Cortisol levels they remain within a range. So many changes happen. You can see the whole list here. And once we get into habitual patterns that are useful for us, they really help us to have the best quality of experiences throughout the day. So since our PTP program is a very application-based program, we are interested in application. Sachin is speaking, I have to apply. If I don't apply these ideas, they're just ideas. Every day, try to apply. What specific improvements need to be made this week? In workbook 1 or workbook 2, you can write it down inside these workbooks. Specifically, how do I improve my discipline? How do I improve my routines? Where am I wasting time and energy? Where am I uselessly spending time and energy? Where's that demarcation? How can I pull away from that? You see, and this is not an easy question. It requires some contemplation on a day-to-day basis. It's not like a snap of the finger. We can come up with these answers. But these answers are relevant all the way around. The benefits are tremendous. There are long-term benefits. There are short-term benefits. There are transformations of personal energy. There is all kinds of evolution. It is the evolution of one's life into a state of self-mastery. Personal transformation is one's own transformation from one state to another. What is that first state? This imbalanced and all mixed up state into a state of balance. And from balance to self-mastery to excellence. That is a progression. Can we get there? Definitely. We can definitely get there. But we cannot get there until we are all absolutely clear of this path. Those who want to reach self-mastery and discover tremendous joy, discover just phenomenal, just a fantastic, beautiful life. Yes, definitely it's possible. Definitely it's available. That's what this program is about. It is about building oneself from the inside out. It is a building, it is a development from inside out. And that's where conservation comes into the picture. To conserve, to harmonize, to balance. And in that, there is natural discipline that will eventually evolve. Because the fact of the matter is that when we get up in the morning, we have choices to make. Even just when to get up in the morning, that's a thing in itself. Many people just oversleep. Again, it's a matter of flexibility. There's physiology. There's a lot of factors involved. It's not like being extremely rigid, but at the same time, we don't want to carry over from 1 hour to the next any disturbances. Now, that's another interesting way to think about this. In a 1 hour period of time, let's say 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. right now, is there any disturbance that I'm going to carry over into tomorrow or into the next hour? And that's what can build a phenomenal hour-to-hour existence. Remember, we talked about this before in the retreats, that we are building a beautiful memory structure in the present. We're building the past, and we're visualizing the future as a potentiality. And so each hour is built, and it becomes memory. And in that, so then let's say 5 hours go by where there is no resistance, no tension, no fear, no agitation, no carryover of any kind of disturbance. Those 5 hours will feel heavenly. That is heaven inside of us. Because we are in a zone of zero resistance, zero disturbance, maximum energy is conserved, and there is so much wisdom and grace and just beautiful experiences that we want to have. So then we are having then the diversity of experiences, like the Mexican restaurant examples, the simple examples, right? You go, but the experience of joy is tenfold through this state, as opposed to trying to overstimulate to try to discover joy. That's a big difference. That's why people are overweight. That's why they're obese. That's why they're unhappy, because trying to discover joy through overstimulation rather than trying to, rather than allowing stimulation to come and go on the substratum of joy. It's totally different. And so our goal is to build that substratum of joy, or to open that dimension through balancing, through energy conservation, all these different, every single idea since the first presentation last year until today, it has to do with building the foundation of absolute joy. And on that foundation of absolute joy, all experiences come and go. Isn't that interesting? What a concept that is. Most human beings are doing the opposite. They're using experiences, to try to discover what is joy. You can try that, but no experience is continuous. It just change their waves only. And the waves come and go, come and go, come and go, come and go. But the ocean is the same. The waves are also nothing but the ocean in another form. But that realization has to come when you recognize what is the ocean. If somebody sees only the waves, you don't realize that is the ocean. One is stuck in a very limited understanding. If I'm thinking that the bean burrito that I'm going to eat from Taco Bell is the only way for me to become happy, so I eat 2 of those and then eat something else, and because of the stimulation, I'm trying to use stimulation to open the doorway into joy. Just by the stimulation is limited. The stimulation must not be mistaken for joy. It is existing because of joy, because of that substratum of existence and consciousness. It doesn't have any independent existence, but that limited is what we get focused on, and that's it. Rather than allowing that limited to come and go. I'll give you a very simple example. I've given this example before somewhere, I don't remember where. If just an ordinary person who's, let's say, has making $50,000 a year, goes to Acme and buys a 20-ounce bottle of Pepsi, right? And he drinks it, and it's nice, cold, it's hot outside, and he drinks it, enjoys it, fine. Let's see how this works. But another person, I'm just using this as an example, just for the illustrative purpose. Another person, who has $100 million in the bank account, goes into the same Acme, gets the same Pepsi bottle, and drinks it. What's the difference? The sensation, based on state of mind, there could be other factors also, but based on state of mind, the second person is drinking that Pepsi bottle out of complete financial freedom. The other person is thinking, should I buy this or not? There's resistance. This is too expensive. I only have so much limited budget. All those thoughts come. That thought may not come to the other person at all. That's the difference. This is a very gross example. It's just like that. When we are in a state of self-mastery, when we are completely in that bubbling, dynamic state of zero energy dissipation and pure conservation, and when we're in that, then every limited experience it opens to its maximum capacity although through minimal interaction. The person with $100 million doesn't have to buy 100 Pepsi bottles. The same bottle is used. Same amount of Pepsi is drank, but it's drank through inner freedom. They don't have to worry about prices and the small things. But somebody who has very limited budget is cutting the coupon. Let me save 25 cents on this Pepsi bottle. That is a difference between internal poverty versus internal wealth. That's a big difference. And what we are trying to do here in the PTP program is to enhance and increase the internal wealth within. And once that begins to grow, who can touch you? Who can touch you? There's nobody on the outside that can be the cause of unhappiness. There is the right interaction, the right amount of interaction. There is the mindful interaction, and happiness becomes, it opens naturally from inside. That is joy. That opens naturally from inside. Stability, joy, all these quantum qualities, all these beautiful things that we always talk about. It all opens beautifully. It flowers. It is a flowering. It's a flower that opens up. And our goal here in this journey is to actually, in reality, open this dimension. Not simply talk about it, not simply think about it. And of course, are there going to be ups and downs and some people being thrashed to the right, from left to right? Yes, that's going to happen. It might happen. It'll probably has happened last year. It might happen this year also. It might happen next year also. But it doesn't have to keep happening. It doesn't have to be that way all the time. Eventually, a point comes where that stops. Eventually, a point comes where all of that thrashing back and forth, swinging back and forth, it stops. Because of the solidification, the development of phenomenal, beautiful energy flow in every dimension of life. Where masterfully, and we'll talk about this next year, how to masterfully put energy in each dimension and masterfully take it out. Masterfully put the right amount and take it out. We'll get into that in a lot of detail next year. That's year number 3. Right now, for today, a couple of things to keep in mind. Some very simple exercises. Exercise number 1, homework assignment number 1. Get the house in order. Make it better. Even if you think it's the 100% okay, make it a little bit better. Because what does that do? The environment makes all the difference for our internal environment. The external and the internal are linked. Small things. Keep the shoe rack in order. Make sure the house is well vacuumed. Make sure that there is maybe even a good air filter. Whatever you need so that when you walk into the house, you should feel, what a splendid place this is. Build the environment. Sometimes it's difficult with kids and other things like that going on. There's no doubt, but you can make it still happen. It can still happen. You can always keep improving. I'm not talking about being a hyper-perfectionist or anything like that. I don't mean it that way. There's always flexibility. But if one is, it's like this. If one is aiming high, there is more discipline required. The lower the goals, the less discipline. The higher the goals, the more discipline. If someone wants to live in the International Space Station, they have to go through so much training and all kinds of discipline, as opposed to somebody who wants to become an airline pilot. That's also a great thing. But the training is totally at a different level. Astronaut training is not the same thing as becoming an airline pilot. And becoming an airline pilot is not the same thing as playing with toy airplanes. Kids are playing with toy airplanes. Maybe we played with them also. It's a huge difference in these 3 levels. And this is the point. You see, so we can evolve. We can grow. All right, so let's go into the quantum principle. Let me just, I have a whole lot of material. Material is available, but it's not about the amount of material, folks. It's all application. So let's go into this. Hold on just a second here. So principle number 4 in week number 4 is empathy and compassion. You should have that card from last time. If you don't, I'm going to create a new document with all the quantum qualities. We're going through all the 52 qualities, but this time it's about connecting empathy and compassion with energy conservation and sustained balance. This is the goal this year. Each principle, how does it connect with sustained balance and the topic at hand, which is energy conservation? So if you make a pyramid on your chart, the 3 points. Point number 1, just put empathy and compassion. Point number on one part of the pyramid. On the other angle, put energy conservation, and the third is sustained balance. So these three come together, and that's the goal. There's a lot of interesting points here. about this. And it's a fantastic quality, empathy and compassion. What is the connection actually? The more empathy and more compassion we have, the better balanced we're going to be in. Our balance increases and our energies are more in sync internally because of this quality. That's the essence of it. It is a very beautiful quality. There's a lot of points here to consider. There are many dimensions of it all. It builds relationships. Obviously, it's good for a workplace. It's good for creativity. It's the things that we already know, but it's a matter of bringing it actually into one's life, right? So it's good for leadership, emotional intelligence, and it goes on. I mean, there can be some barriers like fatigue and whatnot. They can be handled also, right? So it's pretty straightforward. Okay, and then of course, the vitamin M envelope, try to put some money in there every week, and that which is really, really good. And then to spend only 10% of that every week to learn the concept of vitamin M, not an easy concept to understand or to even apply, but that's a big one. And with that, spend 10% of the allocated money. That also enhances this. And at the same time, as a homework assignment, I've given you some homework assignments here. Where is the best possible way to develop discipline so that energy conservation increases? And you'll notice the more organized one's life is, the more conservation of energy comes. You can write some couple of paragraphs on that if you would like. Right? We'll do our closing song now, and we should be on track here.